to the fundamentals of marketing strategy. So that's where I'd like to take us. And Juan, you really kind of hit the nail on the head, because the reality is that I don't care what you call it, what the name of the day is, or what the flavor of the month is in terms of marketing strategies. All marketing strategies should be built on a pretty solid understanding of who your customer is and what they value. And regardless of how you articulate it or how you package it in terms of what you're doing, if your marketing strategies and how you're communicating is not built on a firm understanding of exactly who your customer is, then you probably you're already kind of in many ways setting yourself up to maybe miss some of the mark. And so what I'd like to do is exactly what Juan talked about, really challenge us to think about who is your target customer. Okay. Now, Juan, one of the things I thought was interesting that you said is that you thought that, hey, these are the customers that I thought I had something appealing for. Mm-hmm. And that's great, right? Because that's where a lot of people start. But what's interesting, though, is that as you start to look at the data, you start to see that, hey, maybe my target customer is in another demographic, right? Someone closer to their 80s. So this is what we mean. I want to define this. The target customer. This is what we're referring to as the customer that is most likely to buy your product or use your service, okay? The customer that is most likely to buy your product or use your service. Now, I'm sure that you probably serve a whole lot of customers that are not in your target customer. Juan, I'm sure you probably will still sell your product or services to folks in their 50s, even though you know that your sweet spot is customers in their 80s. But the reality is that it is important to know that sweet spot. So what is the customer that is most likely to buy your product or use your service? And what we mean by that is the customer that or whose needs most align with what you offer, okay? That if you were to hang up a shingle and say, this is what you offer, there's going to be a lot of people who are probably going to be attracted to that, but there's probably going to be a segment of those people whose needs directly align with what it is that you offer. And that's what we call the target customer. Now, when it comes to the target customer, this is not just a very loose or a broad definition. Okay, if you talk to many companies who've gone through these exercises of doing target customer management and target customer development, they are very, very specific. Okay, and this is an example. And again, it's why I want to come back to you, Tanisha, because I thought, oh, this example that I'm going to use is actually right up your alley. So this is an example that I pulled that really gets into the specifics of a target customer. As we can see here, this is a target consumer for a hair care product. Mm-hmm. And it's a hair care product that particularly targets African Americans and African Americans who identify as women. Now, what's interesting is they have already kind of broken off a gender demographic. So they know that their target customer is a woman. They, as you can see here, they have an age that they've defined, 18 to 45, okay? That's pretty broad. But what they say here, and if you notice, they have a bullseye, and that bullseye is about 30 years old. So what they're indicating is that although they typically serve women, particularly African-American women, somewhere in the age range of 18 to 45, their bullseye is 30, right? Not only is she 30, but she's middle class. She's college educated. She, has some, particular behaviors that she exhibits, like using her clothes and accessory, and maybe even her hairstyle as a form of self-expression. So this is someone who adorns themselves in a way to express themselves. Okay, so she's got some values that she has placed on her appearance and the way that she adorns herself. But not only that, she watches certain things on TV, like Scandal. So of course, this is a couple of years old, but Scandal, of course, was the hot show that typically seemed to cater to African American women. And so this target customer is she watches Scandal, she watches BET, she reads Essence, she reads gossip tabloids, particularly online. Okay, so she's probably looking at YouTube videos on what's going on in the media, and she's very digitally savvy. blah, blah, blah. You get it, right? So the idea here is that when it comes to developing a target customer, really the goal is to be very specific, right? And again, this is the profile
what they use from getting on our
the customer that this particular agency has defined as, again, going back to the definition, most likely to buy the hair care product that they're offering to the marketplace. Now, there are going to be more women, and there may even be people who identify as men who might buy this product. But when it comes to their target customer, it is an African-American woman, somewhere between 18 to 45, but primarily around her 30s. That's all the rest of these demographics and definitions, right? This is what we call the target customer and identifying a target customer. Now, I know that, Juan, you indicated that you've kind of gone through this. Has anyone else done something like this where you have defined a very specific target customer? Maybe if I get one person willing to share, if you've done that. Deborah, I think you just come off the Zoom.
I did.
I'm sorry, off of mute, yeah.
Yes, I have spent some time in developing our target customer. Our business, our fabric stash is a sustainability business. And so we focus in making sure that items don't get left in the waste stream. And so there's two different targets. There's a product side, which is targeting makers, whereas there's also the service side, which is targeting collectors of fabric and textiles and craft-related items. So it's two portions of it. And we spent quite a bit of time in looking at both aspects of it. The makers generally is a broad range. It can go from adolescents to elderly. And then the collectors are generally in that baby boomer model of where they spent a lifetime collecting fabric and textiles and all the raw materials associated with it, and they're looking to utilize our service to purge some of these items. Right. So gain some type of space out.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad that you've done that. Again, I think that that's where, to be honest, that's where a lot of great marketing strategy starts, is having that good understanding of who you're serving and who you're really communicating to. And we're going to talk more about that here in a moment. So, if you're in the B2C space, so if you're selling products to consumers like you and I in the marketplace, you're selling products that, to serve to customers that are consumers, the framework suggests that you should know, like many people say, you should know what kind of car your target customer drives and how they like their coffee. Okay, so you should know with some degree of specificity who it is that you're marketing to, and you should be able to articulate that pretty clear. So you've got to know their demographics, right? So what's their age? What gender do they identify with? What age bracket are they in? What type of educational background do they represent? It's also important that you know some of their psychographic and sociographic information. So, got you, Euro. So when it comes to psychographic and sociographic, what we're talking about there is, number one, kind of what are some of that target customer's viewpoints and opinions about things. Are they, for example, left-leaning or right-leaning? Are they more conservative? Are they more liberal? And what value do they place on things like family and friends? Are they a part of certain social circles and certain social networks? Again, having an understanding of not only what this person is like in terms of their age and race, ethnicity, and gender, but having some idea of what your target customer does on a day-to-day basis, the kinds of circles that he or she hangs in, and what kind of things they gravitate toward. You look like you had a question there?
Oh, sure. I just wanted to talk. Well, when we started, we had one target customer, which was at families of at-risk African-American males. But then later we shifted to targeting the family. And I just want to know what insight did you have about how your demographic can shift, or your target customer?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, and maybe we'll dig into that, particularly after we come back from a little roundup, I think, as you suggested, as well as Juan suggested, sometimes there can be those shifts in that target customer. And I think what we saw during the pandemic was a lot of people started shifting, right, in terms of who they were targeting. A lot of it was just out of sheer survival. But I do believe that there are some ways that your target customer can shift. I think the more important part is that you are aware of that and you saw it happening and you started to shift in terms of how you were marketing and communicating with that target customer. That's the most important thing. I would also say that, sometimes these target customers kind of emerge over time. And many people say, hey, I didn't really dig into it and try to figure it out. They just started to emerge as I started to pay attention to who was essentially gravitating to my business, right? So in a perfect world, you would do some, and I've got a little worksheet here that I want you guys to kind of work on over the next couple of days. In a perfect world, you'll sit back, you'll pour up a cup of coffee, and you'll really kind of ponder, maybe even look at some data, see who your customers really, really are, really dig into that with some data, right? But, what you can do just at a cursory glance is just, take some observations. And you might find, like Juan did, that you think your target customer is in the 50s and in the 50 and 60 age bracket, but in fact, they may be more like in their 80s. And I would say a lot of times that happens when, just one pitfall here to be careful of, many companies I've seen have defined their target customer based on who they want to sell their product to, or who they believe they designed their product or service for. But the reality is that the customer will respond based on what they feel they are attracted to. And all the time what happens is your target customer might actually emerge as someone totally different than who you thought you were trying.
That's what happened to us
when you develop
with the family health program.
So it could be that, very well could be the case, that hey, you had a goal in mind in terms of, I'm trying to reach these families, and I'm trying to reach, because that's often one of the phrases we use, especially in your business. We're trying to reach a target. When you stand it up and you start to deal with who is attracted to it, it could be a very different group than what you were.
I'll just give you an example. When we came back from the Black colleges for 25 years, I was on fire to help at-risk African-American males and Black families. And our first contract was in Ann Arbor in Washtenaw County. And they gave us 10 families with the juvenile justice system. Half of those families were white. And the people who needed our service were mixed and white. And they used to always tell me I had to ramp down my rhetoric, because they said, Dr. Hill, make room for the white people. And so we realized,
and that's just an example of how sometimes your services and your products might actually start to appeal to a different demographic. Now, one thing I will say, there's nothing wrong with having a target customer that you stick to and that you see as your North Star. Because one of the things, and again, I want to get back to this, I'm stealing a little bit of my thunder, but sometimes the articulation of a target customer, people view it as, that this is the only customer that I serve.
Right.
That's not the case. Your target customer is important because it gives you a North Star in terms of how to build your communications and your marketing strategies. Your actual customers might be all across the spectrum, but your target, as you see, is your sweet spot, is the one that you see as your funnel or your tunnel vision. Even as you serve all these customers, it is important to always have a tunnel vision and to have a customer that you're focusing on in terms of how you develop your communications. The last things I would say here in terms of target customer, these 5 categories. Okay, so we talked about demographics, we talked about psychographic and sociographics. Geographic, is your customer in a particular geographic area? Are you serving folks in the Detroit metro area, or are you serving folks in Michigan, in the Midwest, etc.? And then lastly, behavior, right? What are just some of the things that your target customer does? As the example I showed you indicated, this sister watches Scandal and she reads Essence. That is a behavioral definition of what your target customer looks like, right? Now, not to fear if you are in the B2B area, I did want to come back to this. If you're in the B2B area, you might say, hey, I don't serve customers, so I'm not really dealing with a demographic of an individual because I don't serve consumers in the marketplace. Well, there's also an ability for you to do target customer identification. Are there certain industries that you target? right? If you offer business services to corporate clients, are there certain company quote demographics? Are your target company customers typically small companies? Are they large corporations? Are they geographics, right? The fifth one, are they companies that are based in Michigan, right? Because of whatever you offer, your contracting requires that you have to kind of focus on a particular geographic region. You know, interestingly enough, although you may not have an individual that you're marketing your product to, if you're doing B2B, you're probably going to be working with corporate buyers, right? People who have those purchasing dollars. And maybe there are some demographics, if you will, of those purchasing agents that you need to take into consideration. Are these purchasing agents, for example, are they capable of making large contracts, or are they, for example, do they report through a lot of layers, or are these buyers empowered to make decisions without having to get a lot of approvals? That would be an example of what I mean by like the corporate buyer quote demographics, right? And then lastly, relational networks. Are there the companies that you target? Are they in certain circles? Do they have other companies as their clients? And so really thinking about, kind of that relational network of those companies that you might be targeting as well. So what I've done here, and we've had great healthy discussion about it, we've talked about the importance of a target customer and identifying that target customer with specificity, not loose, with specificity. I've given you 5 categories if you're B2C, 5 categories if you're B2B. I've got a worksheet on this, okay? This is an example of this worksheet: demographic, psychographic, sociographic. I've got the definitions on the worksheet. You won't be able to do it today. I'm gonna tell you not. You won't even be able to do it today. So this is for your homework purposes. This example, and you're gonna get all these slides, so it'll be in the slides. This is an example of a company that was actually a Detroit-based company that was in our ICCC cohort of last year. She took this, she went home, she worked it out, she sent it back to me, and I asked her if I could use it as an example. As you can see here, she has defined her demographic: women, $125,000 salary, has had some graduate school. She enjoys time outdoors. She loves to travel. She's in New York, maybe Brooklyn, the Bay Area. So she's outlined that target customer. You will have these worksheets. We're going to make sure that these worksheets are available to you. The worksheets are in the B2B as well as in the B2C space. And so you can spend some time really digging into this, writing this out. But in the interest of time, I know we won't be able to get into the worksheet, but you do have the ability to get together in a small group and start to talk about this. So I see that, Deborah and Juan and Euro, you guys have started to think about this. Maybe others are thinking about this for the first time. So we're going to allow you guys to go into a little bit of a breakout and start to talk about this, defining your target customer. Right. And you'll also notice on this worksheet, I also have in that last box, how did COVID impact? Not let you, because I want you to start to think about, we talk a lot about how COVID impacted the market, but the reality is that COVID didn't impact all customers the same, right? Some customers actually, COVID was a good thing in terms of what you might offer to them, right? So not all customers were impacted the same through COVID. And it's important that we start to think specifically about how our target customer was impacted by COVID, because it may not actually be the same story as maybe some other companies. So you've got these worksheets that are going to be made available to you, and we're going to get those to you in the chat. And they'll be available with all the information that we may provide to you. But in the interim, we're going to allow you about 7 minutes to get together in small groups and talk about this concept of the target customer. If you haven't started to think about your target customer, maybe in this small group, you can share some ideas on what your target customer might look like. I know you're going to be, tempted to talk about other stuff, but let's try to help each other define that target customer and really kind of bounce your ideas off of each other. And maybe let's have some aha moments and some light bulb moments in these small breakouts. And again, we're going to be breaking you out into small groups of 3, and we'll give you about 7 minutes, and then we'll have some report back, and then we'll keep going. Okay. Fair enough. Any questions on anything in terms of what we're tasked to do?
That's pretty good.
All right. Looks like everybody got it. Our breakout rooms should be opening now. Opening. Perfect. Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it, brother. And
7 minutes, that's not much time. Should be coming into a group somewhere. They bounced us out. Oh, here we are. Coming into a group. Hello. Hello.
Hi there, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Pretty good.
Good, good. I like that. That's you standing behind you, huh?
It is.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to go first?
Well, yeah, I can go ahead and go first. So just a little backdrop on the company. We're a fabric store on the surface, but what's unique about us is that we get our inventory in from the individual makers, companies, and designers. So they ship us their either unwanted items, so scraps that are left over from projects or any unwanted items. They ship them literally to us from all over the world.
Oh, okay.
And what we do is make those items available to them, available to the general public to purchase.
Okay.
So it can be items as literally as old as from the turn of the century to forward.
Wow.
And so our market is twofold. We have the general target market of the makers that are coming into to the store to make purchases.
Okay.
And we also have the target market of the individuals, the companies, and the designers that are getting rid of items.
Are you business to business?
We're business to B2C and B2B.
That's what. Yeah, it's an interesting mix. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're both actually. And let's see here. So on the service side of it is because it's a product and a service target market. And on the service side of it, it is that the B2C and the B2B. And to be honest, it's the same way on the product side too, because designers and individuals, they come to us because we're in that whole recycle, repurpose, reuse space.
Okay.
They may want to design a line around that. So it just kind of varies, and it's a broad base, but each of them have their different targets that may share on both sides. And then they both have what he was referring to as that sweet spot of where we know that on the service side for the B2C, our products are going to come in from those baby boomers. They have been sewing since they were kids, and they've collected fabric and stashes, over the years, or they've inherited from their grandparents or their parents themselves, and they're sitting on stock. And so, and that age group is starting to purge. And so that would be on that side. Whereas the makers could, vary. It's broad, because the makers can be from like 6 or 7 years old to 90. But based on the offerings that we have and based on the particular crafts, it could vary. For the fabric and textiles, it could be one thing versus, the folks that are knitting and crocheting, that could be different. So it's kind of like subsets within it as well.
So, okay, so first question. How did you come to do this business?
Yeah. What inspired you?
Yeah, did it find you or did you find it? Yeah, did it find you or did you find it?
We found each other.
Okay. That's beautiful.
Right, because it sounds like, your average, unless you're into that, the average person, you would have to have a history with understanding fabric and that whole world, right?
That is true. Well, I'll share this. I grew up in Detroit, actually.
Okay.
And the business is here in Seattle.
Okay.
And while growing up, I had always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And then I always wanted to learn how to sew.
Okay.
But I suppressed it. because I think I knew myself well enough that I probably wouldn't have made it to college if I would have went in that whole fashion.
Okay.
So after I graduated from school, I moved here to the Northwest. And I met someone who I asked them, would they teach me how to sew? And they said they would, but they didn't have time actually. But here's a sewing machine and a book, go read. And I did that and took it back, and she was like, no, you didn't read. And, you know, got the seam ripper, sent me back on. So that's literally how I learned. And when she passed away, she had this large stash. And nobody in her family sewed. And my husband and I were too young at the time to purchase it, but that's when I came up with the ideal, and this was back in '94.
Okay.
Yep. So I kind of worked on the business plan, you know, throughout my career. You know, just kind of like, you know, whenever the job would make me upset, then that's when I would work on it. So 20 years removed from that, my attic looked like her 2-car garage. Okay. And I was planning my exit strategy from corporate. Okay. And so that's how I got into it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's
yeah.
That's a wonderful journey. That's
yeah.
And
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You know, it's interesting. I'll just share this. My grandmother, who has passed a number of years ago, but she was a seamstress. She made curtains, hats, quilts, all kinds of things. And I never learned that. But, you know, I never spent that kind of time with her. I did do some crocheting and some knitting and things along that line. But and then we've recently lost a cousin who was her niece, who was also a seamstress. So in the family, that was kind of passed down just to the immediate, you know, mother-daughter, and not to the granddaughters and the rest. But I can really have a great appreciation, because especially as we look at our clothing and fabrics and things in our home and pillows and accessories, you know, I have a great appreciation for it. So
all right, now let's get to the bare bones, Deborah. Okay, I'll quiz you, because we probably have 3 minutes left.
Right.
Okay,
no,
so
we haven't even got to you guys yet.
No, well, yeah, we'll just focus on you. We'll focus on, because if we tackle that and we get it, I think we will all have learned. So I'm learning, listening.
Yeah.
We have 30 seconds now.
Oh,
okay. They got us. They jumped us out.
Recording in progress.
Wow. We wanted to say where she could expand her market.
I wanted to go down to target customer and define.
Right.
All right. Looks like we're starting to come off of
we need more time.
Breakouts.
They bounced us out.
Can we have?
No.
I know.
Perfect.
Well, you almost needed time to know.
So I know that wasn't long enough.
No,
it wasn't.
To chart out your entire target customer. Sorry, I'm dealing with a little sunlight here in my face too, so I'm trying to work this out. But any takeaways, any aha moments? I'm particularly interested if anyone maybe hasn't thought about a target customer, and maybe something that was a light bulb moment for you, either in the breakout or maybe even in some of the session that we had before.
It was light bulb for me, but you know, hearing somebody else's story.
I'm gonna let somebody else.
I guess I have a light bulb moment.
Okay.
Because I hadn't really had a target customer. And I recognize, though, that even though I didn't think I had a target customer, there are certain individual businesses, because I'm business to business, that have actually been my target.
Okay.
So it's kind of opened up to me the idea that I really do need to determine who I could best market my services to.
Perfect. Was that you, Mr. Coleman?
That was me.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I like that, right? Maybe I hadn't thought about it, but I actually do have a target, and hopefully this will help you to articulate who that target customer is, and so that going forward, you'll be able to truly say, this is the sweet spot for us. Again, we'll service other customers, of course, but we definitely have a defined target customer. I think it was Ms. Jenkins. Looked like you were leaning in to maybe share a little bit there, and then Sheila, I got you next.
Okay. I had identified a target customer, but I don't think that I gave it enough depth. And what I mean by that is, you know, the demographics, we had that part down, you know, the age, the gender, the education, and that kind of thing, but more the behavioral thing. I don't think we were as much specific as we should have been, so that we would know where and how to communicate to them and what kind of tools to use, you know, where they were, you know, so that we could put our messages in front of them where they are.
Right. Yep.
So I think that was the part, you know, that we were working on specificity.
Got it. And you mentioned, and you really hit the nail on the head, because I mean that's where we're going with all of this, right? Is now that you know who the target customer is, you know how to communicate with them, right? Time of day, for example. You know, again, because you now are more specific and have more specificity, and dare we even say granularity to who your target customer is, and how's that for another? Sheila, you want to join in there?
Thank you very much for all this. This is so great. I'm wondering, I'm business to business, I assist nonprofits. What if you don't know your customer? How do you get to know so they can go through this process?
Yeah, it's a great question. And in fact, someone had even asked a question in the chat box. Like, hey, do you have certain websites that you can refer? You know, to be honest, I think a lot of this really does come from some good customer insights. And so some of what Tanisha mentioned she was doing earlier, which is why I latched on. You mentioned, hey, I'm engaging with the customer. I'm in social media. Then that's going to be more if you're in the consumer space, really getting a feel for how people are reacting to what you offer. A lot of times in the business, you know, and for big corporations, when they want to do this, they have what they call focus groups. They bring in customers and they start to say, you know, which customers are, you know, jiving more with what we offer. I think it's important too to just kind of talk to your existing customers and see if there is a through line, right? If there is some theme that emerges when you really start to think, okay, now which customers are like what I consider to be the customers that they gravitate to my business, to my service, to my offering. And then you kind of stack them up and say, okay, is there a through line? You know, maybe they're, you know, they could be all men. You might say they all men of a certain age. You know, I'm not starting to see some things emerge. I know you're B2B, so maybe these companies that you're servicing, maybe they're all, you know, maybe if they're not all in the same industries, maybe they're the same size, or maybe they have a certain amount of revenue.
Do
right?
survey
Maybe
months with
they are,
Likert
there's
scale.
a lot of things that could jump out at you as you start to look for those through lines. So I would say a number of ways to do this is, number one, looking at your existing customers, seeing if there's some through lines that emerge. Secondly, though, really spending some time with those existing customers, asking them, like, what attracted you to the business? You know, would you say that what I offer meets your needs? And really starting to maybe get some of that richness of what your customers value out of you. And then you'll start to, that sweet spot will start to emerge. Yeah. And I think we've got one more share, then we'll have to move on in the interest of time. I always run over time with this. I'm telling y'all now. So I'm sorry. I know I got so much more I want to share, but I'm running. I know I'm going to run out. But is it Kim Lee, maybe? Is that it?
That is correct, Kim Lee.
Okay.
One of my aha moments was, I think I've always been challenged about this, especially in construction as a service.
Yes.
And you can say which age of, you know, for the residential market is a little easier because you can say which homeowners. But when you're thinking about B2B and you're constantly, you know, filling out proposals and bids and you're trying to get work with municipalities. So I just had to really think about narrowing that down. And I thought about from the standpoint why this is an important exercise, because it's going to dictate your communication message. When she was saying earlier about you have to have a strategy, and I was like, a value. I'm like, have a mission, have the vision, but I don't think we ever did a value statement. What's our value proposition?
Right.
But that value proposition has to be communicated to a certain set of people who would appreciate that value, that would take action to do business with you. So I think that was my aha out of these two segments so far. That it's necessary. So I got some work to do here.
Absolutely. Yeah. No worries. And again, companies have made it without doing all this. But I think in terms of times of turbulence and really being directed and really being focused, it's a good exercise to maybe step back and take a look at who you're serving, who you're partnering with, and who they are, right? So you'll get those worksheets. Those will be available to you. Let me see. I've got some more things I wanted to share because, one of the Miss Big, let me get it right. Hold on a second. I'm all over the place here. Let me get my screen share back up. And
Barry, just want to let you know you have about 30 minutes left.
30. Oh, yep. Okay, gotcha. Hear me there for a minute. Okay, so one of the other big misnomers is that, a customer is in your target, that immediately means that customer is going to be profitable. Okay?
Say that.
And that is not true. Okay?
That is not true.
Just because a customer is in your in your target, it does not mean that customer is profitable. Okay. And a lot of times I think in business, we typically like to focus on sales and revenue. I mean, especially in marketing, we are so we are guilty of focusing on sales and revenue. Right? We want to market to make sense, but the reality is that you won't be in business long if you're not profitable. The essence of really trying to define these customers is to be focused on those target customers that are profitable. So you'll see here, this is another tool. Again, it's in the slides. You'll have it at your disposal to focus on your target customers, but also their profitability. And really thinking about this on a customer by customer basis, okay? Are there some customers that you're currently serving, that you're currently selling to, that are not profitable? And in some ways, folks will say, well, I know I've looked at my profit and I know my profit margins associated with the products that I sell. But is a customer, for example, requiring more service, more hand-holding, more engagement? Oh my God. And that customer is, every time they require you to engage with them more than what you traditionally do with your other customers, that customer is eating into your profitability, right? Because they're requiring more and more engagement than you typically do with your customers. And so the reality is, I guess the two things to focus on right? Those are the target customers and they're profitable. So they're buying your products and services and they aren't requiring more of you than what you typically offer to your customers in the market. Those are the customers that you really want to try to retain and really grow, right? But there are some customers that are not your target and they are not profitable to you, and those are customers that you might want to consider replacing. Right. Start to say, hey, these are customers that I don't need to be serving. The reality is that not all sales are good sales.
That's right.
Now, again, there are some examples of situations where you might hold on to an unprofitable customer, maybe because that customer is an influencer or they're connected to a lot of really, profitable customers. And so you hang on to that one in order to have access to the rest.
Right.
But by and large, the way this, goes, again, if you have some customers that are not in your target space, they're not in your sweet spot, and because their cost to serve is too much, those are customers that you might want to consider replacing. So this 2x2 matrix is another handy tool that gives you an ability to kind of chart your customers.
And I didn't make any money. I served them for free. So then they called me back on start again.
And I'll pick on you, Yvette. Okay, I now know I need to get more granularity and more depth. When you do that, you'll have a profile that emerges. Then you can start saying, okay, let me look at this customer. Is that customer in my target or not? You can start to put them into those different buckets. Then this is saying, let's look at all those targets. Let's make sure that they're all profitable.
Framework.
If they're not profitable, I need to start working on those ones that are profitable and figuring out how to transform them into a profitable customer.
How many sessions?
Here's an example of transformation. This was another ICCC company. She did a lot of consulting and education, and she said, "Hey, I do a lot of face-to-face stuff." And I noticed that there were target customers but they could not afford my face-to-face services.
Right.
So they were in my target space because they had all the stuff of what I want to target, but at the end of the day, they really struggled with like the kind of engagement face-to-face that would make them profitable. So what she did was she converted her face-to-face, some of that face-to-face content to written content.
Okay.
Which had a lower cost because she didn't have to engage with them in a face-to-face way. So they were still her target. She transferred a lot of that content over to written. And after she did that, she transformed, if you will, those non-profitable target customers into profitable customers by giving them a way of engaging that was lower cost. Okay? That's what we call moving from the upper right to the upper left, transforming a target customer that's unprofitable to a target customer that's profitable.
Yeah. Okay. That's like, look, come to church.
I know there's so much more richness in that, and we could go so much more in depth into this 2x2. There's a whole lot more that we could share. You know, I know for the interest of time, I'll have to, I see Mary on my screen, so I got to keep it moving. But I know there's so much more richness that we could share just in this. The one thing I will also say as we talk about this notion of profitability, you're going to have to count up the costs.
Yeah.
You're going to have to count up the cost. You will not know if your customers are profitable or not if you don't count up the cost. Now, the problem here is that there's so many costs that are hidden, like the cost of your time. So a customer may call you 2 or 3 times, and you think like, oh, that didn't really cost me anything. But that was a cost that you could have been engaging with another profitable target customer.
That's why they charge you when you call them on the phone.
That is a cost. And so I would just advise you that one of the things that we often see is that, and this is in companies large and small, costs are oftentimes hidden. You see here, I have a question. What are some of the hidden costs of serving your target customers?
I just
have one time to answer that, but I will ask you to point. That's a point for you to ponder. Really think through. Are there some hidden costs?
I'm sorry, I got one more question.
Right. Just one more thing.
Those are costs that I'm currently not capturing because they might be soft things. Like
that's why it's in my contract. This goes over 15 minutes. That's a second.
You know, the cost of what I could be doing. By doing something else, or what we call the opportunity cost. Okay, you know, there's a really good example here, and this was a guy. He was a part of our ICCC group down in Texas, and actually, you know what? Actually, he's not in Texas. I think he was out in Colorado, but his company was a Texas barbecue company. And what I liked about this gentleman is he said, "Hey, you know what? I know how much brisket goes into each of my sandwiches, and I know how much wood I need to smoke each piece of brisket, and how much each piece of wood costs, and how much it costs for me to drive to get the wood." That was a layer of depth.
Yeah.
What is it, Yvette? Specificity.
Nope.
Granularity.
He didn't know
that allows him to really dig into those costs, right? So as you start to ponder customers and customer profitability, you know, this was really deep. But in some cases, it does require you to get that deep, to really start to think about your costs. Because again, we're dealing in turbulent times where every dollar still matters. And so it is important to reconcile whether or not there are some costs that you're accumulating that you may not even know you're accumulating because they're lurking, somewhere hidden. And so the point here is, as you are trying to determine profitability, you're going to have to count up the costs.
I'll sit there and look pretty.
So there's a lot of discussion about pivoting. And I know that, you know, we could spend all day. I know so many of you have great examples of the ways that you pivoted during the heart of the pandemic. The one thing I do want to bring you back to is one of the reasons why identifying this target customer is so important. You want to try as best you can to pivot in ways that are add on additional value propositions to your target.
The dope lady.
Okay, so you want to try as best you can to pivot. And to pivot in a way that brings additional value
like a food truck
to your target customers. This is an example, again, another ICCC company. This company started as a dog walking service.
Right.
Okay. She started Pet and Home Care as a dog
walking
service. Eventually started offering in-home visits because some of the clients that she
ransacked.
And then after a while, she noticed that, hey, you know, I have access to these people's homes. The reason
we have to be like an armored truck.
to keep their homes clean. And so why don't I add home cleaning services to my roster? Because I already have access to their home. They've already entrusted me with a part of their family, if you will, right? Their pets. And so why don't I maybe capitalize on the fact that I'm in these homes?
That's what I'm saying. I don't even really want to be back
so
there.
these home cleaning services was an additional add-on service that she
on my pharmacy
as a way to add additional value to her target customers.
That's what I'm saying. Kroger's really, all these pharmacies need to tighten that up.
Who were typically homeowners or some facsimile of that, who cared about cleanliness, who really valued their pets because they hired someone to go in and walk the pet.
Okay.
Or come in and visit the pet. Okay. So these are people like myself who really care about their pets. And so that's a demographic. That's a psychographic. Right, that you certainly
clean up in Ann Arbor
to offer additional services.
You know?
So again, the one thing I will say is that when it comes to this whole target customer conversation, is not only about communications. Okay,
that's what I'm saying. People love their pets more than people.
Knowing what that target customer values, and in many ways, that gives you some boundaries in which you can maybe pivot, right, to offer more value to those target customers. And I know there was a lot of conversation about pivoting during 2020, but the reality is that you'll always be pivoting in a way, right, as you continue to grow and expand your businesses. Pivoting is just, I'm glad everybody pivoted. So now you get that pivoting motion and you can continue to pivot because that's just the way that you're going to have to continue to grow your business. You know what? I also offer you this, okay? We're talking about this target customer concept, and it's important. But the reality is that there is possible that you can have something called a secondary target customer, okay? And this happens, right? Again, it's kind of back to what you were mentioning, maybe even perhaps Juan, what you were mentioning. And I'll give you the classic example that I typically use in classrooms. Johnson baby lotion. Any of you still use Johnson baby lotion to this day? I know Johnson & Johnson their brand is a little bit sketchy right now, but Tanisha, you raise your hand, okay? I take it, you're a full grown adult, right? Johnson & Johnson found that, y'all know that Johnson's baby lotion was designed for parents, for babies. But they noticed over time that there started to be adults who hovered over that product, who still use Johnson baby lotion to this day. So much so that Johnson baby lotion you'll find in most, usually large retailers like Walmart and Meijer and such. You'll see Johnson baby lotion in the baby aisle, and you'll see Johnson baby lotion in the lotion aisle, right? In the personal care products. Those are actually two different inventory items. They have them recorded differently. They monitor those products differently. They sell differently. The demand for the product is different. Okay. The reality is that a secondary target customer emerged in the space of Johnson baby lotion because there is the parent and then there is the person like my wife and I who don't have children, and yet we still probably have some Johnson baby lotion in our household. Right? That's an example of how a secondary target customer may actually be out there. So as you're talking about targeting your target customers, I just wanted to advise you that it could be possible that you have a secondary. And again, that is possible, and it does happen, particularly when you have another customer segment that insists on your product or service, even if they're outside of what you might define as your target. Okay, I'll take a pause there. So we talked a lot about target customers, defining that target customer, knowing whether or not that target customer is profitable, counting up the costs in order to determine if that target customer is profitable. And then lastly, maybe even, grappling with the idea that you could maybe even have a secondary target customer out there. Any questions about anything before we move on? I know that was a lot to process. And I'm gonna actually even give you a lot more. So I'm coming pretty quick with this. The reason why, okay, all of this is important, and I think we've seen some alluding to it before, is of course, this helps you to define and communicate. So there's been a lot of discussion about digital marketing, digital communications. A lot of you in the chat box indicated that you are using social media to market your product to your customers. Defining that target customer really helps you to to align all of those communications. And I'll give you some examples and some things to chew on as you kind of go through this. This is another ICCC company. She's based out of Detroit, actually. I don't know if any of you know the lady that owns Donna Marie's Seasoning. She's an ICCC company from maybe a year or two ago. She's Detroit based. She built this company as someone who was diagnosed with high blood pressure. She was diagnosed with hypertension, and she wanted good seasonings and seasonings that were not really heavy laden with salt. And so she built this company just from her personal narrative. You'll see here in the lower left, she's very open and transparent about her personal story and the journey that she has traveled as someone who battles with high blood pressure. I've got that diagnosis. I tried to fight it for years, and then finally just accepted I got to do something about it. So that resonated with me. Okay, her story, her transparency, which is something I want to come back to, resonated with me. But here's what I really wanted to get at. The lower right is an email that I got from her. The upper right is her YouTube channel. Everything she communicates is aligned. She knows that she is communicating with persons who that's their
the bomb diggity right there.
The may, for example, be battling some kind of health journey, be it
she had a personal issue,
etc. Is this one? So you have some of this? I thought somebody just showed they have a bottle of that product.
That was
she all of her communications are aligned. Okay, she services a lot of people, most likely that are not patients who dealt with high blood pressure, but she's unapologetically communicating to a particular customer segment that she has defined as her target.
That's what you mean.
That's the key point.
Exactly.
Once you know who your target is, once you know what your products are designed for, you will know how to effectively communicate. Social media is going to be so important, and we'll continue to go up. Actually, this is probably a little bit dated because I think this might be 1 or 2 years old. 58% of customers are more likely to buy from a brand they follow on social media. Okay, so if you are already engaging on social media, you're on the right track. More than half of the customers in the market are they like this, right? And this is I know we're talking a lot of these stats are B2C, and so. Okay. Sheila, I hear you because I know you're B2B. But what we now also see, and I've got a point here, although I may not be able to hammer it, a lot of businesses are buying from service providers the same way that they shop on Amazon.
Okay.
Business buyers, corporate buyers, purchasing managers are actually approaching business service providers and suppliers the same way that they shop on Amazon. They want that same experience. And so although a lot of these stats are consumer stats, they actually do apply even if you're doing B2B. Okay, so 58% of customers follow on social media are they're more inclined to buy. This is a good resource for a social media strategy. Again, I won't be able to get into it, but notice number 1 and number 2. Define a target audience and
look at that.
Develop a buyer persona. What's the persona of your customer? Okay, now that you're communicating on social media, like who are you communicating to? Some companies even give their customers a name, or they give their customers a persona. I could narrow what I communicate on Facebook. It all starts with defining who you're communicating with through social media, marketing through social media, and then maybe even giving that individual or that target customer a persona so that you know who you're working with. I used to work for Hallmark Cards when I was in corporate. We knew exactly who the Hallmark Cards customer was. We referred to her as a she all throughout the company. And that's just the way it was. We just knew that was the client that we were serving. And you're going to get all these slides, by the way, so you'll have access to all this.
Okay.
When it's appropriate, give your brand an identity. Notice here what IHOP did. I know I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but in the food space, a lot of food companies are now starting to use their Twitter and other social media, and they get really casual, if you will, right? They use a lot of vernacular, or might we even say slang, like the pancake game all the way up. Okay, some of you might follow that. Some of us with a few more grades in here may not know exactly what that means, but the reality is that they were using some terminology from a hip hop song to communicate through social media. when it's appropriate, you can actually do that because again, you have a target customer. I'm actually very enthused by and find it quite comical. There's a company that caters to young women. It's an apparel company called Fashion Nova.
On fun time.
And when I was talking about this, my wife, she said, "Oh, you have to follow Fashion Nova." And so she started showing me some of their communications. And the way they communicate, it's just very relaxed, you know, and it sounds as if like a friend. And again, that's the kind of communications that they can do because they know that they have a particular target customer through the apparel that they sell. So when it is appropriate, you can use your identity and maybe even give a certain perspective and things to the way that you leverage social media. Okay, here's the thing to be careful about with social media. This is a balancing act. I've got a lot of data in here. Notice here on the left, the reason why people unfollow a brand on social media, almost 45%, 46% say too many promotional messages. Okay, so if you're inundating people with promotional messages through social media, be careful, right? At the same time, look on the right. The things that cause customers to purchase on social media.
That makes people unfollow.
The second highest is offering promotions. Right? So customers want you to offer promotions through social media, but they don't want you to offer too many. Now, what too many is, I don't know. That's a fine line. And I wish I knew the answer to that. I wish I knew the silver bullet. I think it depends on market to market. But the key takeaway here is that as you're leveraging social media, you need to be offering things like promotions as best you can, but be careful because there is a fine line. And the moment that you start to offer too many promotions, then you might actually start to get customers to unfollow you. And if you follow the stat from before, the key to getting customers to buy from you, particularly in the social media marketing age, is getting them to follow you.
Oh, okay.
So you don't want them to be unfollowed you. Okay. Some additional stats. Customer service issues, you got to deal with those in social media. If people complain on Facebook, you've got to address it on Facebook. Okay. If they complain on Twitter, you've got to address it on Twitter. There's so much research on that, why that matters, why it matters to people who look on. I know all of us can probably attest to seeing somebody post something on Facebook and then seeing the company reply to them on Facebook and being like, okay, that was all right that they did that. So that's just the way it goes in terms of marketing and social media. And again, I apologize. I know I'm trying to cover quite a bit in a short period of time. Now, these slides are going to be a lot to process. Again, you'll have them, but they are very rich. I don't know if any of you have seen slides like this, but these are slides that indicate the different social media platforms that people use in the marketplace based on age. Okay. So that. Again, what this is suggesting here Twitter, is Instagram, that
Facebook.
So if you're looking at, let's say on the left, okay, if you are looking at the, let's say we're talking about Facebook, okay,
50 to 70 years.
18 to 29-year-olds, 70% of 18 to 29-year-olds are on Facebook. That's because they are represented by the navy blue dot on the Facebook line. What age? Ages 65 plus, that is kind of that yellowish mustard color. 50% of that age demographic is on Facebook, okay? As we know, and we can probably tell from our respective homes, 30 to 49-year-olds are probably the highest demographic on Facebook, right? Notice here, TikTok, again, catering to 18 to 29-year-olds. I know these data are back in 2021. This may have changed a bit. YouTube, very high penetration, right? 95% of people 18 to 29 pull up YouTube videos. Again, there's a lot of richness in this data. On the right-hand side, this graph goes even further because it gives you not only age demographics, but gender differences. Okay, 82% of men, 80% of women when it comes to YouTube, for example. You also see these numbers broken down by race and ethnicity, okay? Notice here that, for example, let's look at WhatsApp. I don't know how many of you use WhatsApp, but amongst the Hispanic community, 46%. Okay, that's a big difference compared to maybe, Black consumers and white consumers. So WhatsApp is quite popular in Hispanic communities. You'll also notice that these numbers are broken out by income, demographic, education, and even urban, suburban, and rural. Okay. Now, remember, we talked earlier about being very specific about defining that demographic and your target customer. And this kind of data is why it's important, right? Because it gives you some idea of where folks are, right? I mean, you could be advertising through Pinterest, but we know for certain that if your target customer is a man and identifies as a man, then Pinterest is not where it's at, because only 16% of men are on Pinterest. Okay. And that's as of 2021. So this data is not terribly old, right? I mean, Pinterest just as a social media platform caters to women, and they do it unapologetically. Okay. So there are some, so these are some insights that can help you as you build out your social media strategy. Again, this is more data. I know I'm moving fast through it. It tells you the time of day that people typically are on these social media sites. So again, posting on a Sunday on Instagram is not going to be as beneficial as posting on a Tuesday. And in fact, according to this data, the best time is Tuesday between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Okay. So again, if you know from your age demographic that Instagram is where you need to be, then these are the times that perhaps work best. And I even have more, because there are different times that you should post, maybe depending upon the time, the kind of industry that you're in. So for example, restaurants versus education versus if you do things in media. Okay, so there are, and by the way, this source here, Sprout Social, again, you'll get the slides, but you can look on Sprout Social, and they do a lot of great data analytics to get into when's the best time to post if you're in certain industries and if you're on certain platforms. Okay?
Thank you.
I know that's all real rich, but this is why getting into the depths of defining that target customer is so important, because if you know who you're communicating with, and you know where you should be communicating, when you should be communicating, and how you should be communicating, right? And therefore your marketing messages you're giving your marketing messages a head start, right? You're giving yourself a head start in marketing because you know that you're reaching a target customer that you define is the customer whose needs you meet.
Facebook, okay?
Just some other quick things. I've got 5 minutes. Just some other quick things. These are just be observations, and I admit I'm not going to be able to cover all of them. I'm going to jump over some because I've got 5 minutes to do this. But just some observations. So we talked about the target customer, whether or not they're profitable,
more people on
how to define them,
on Sunday,
and how to effectively communicate with them through social media.
Played around.
Here's some things that we kind of see coming out of 2020 and some marketing themes, if you will, that just kind of have emerged over the last couple of years. Number one, a lot of times when we go through economic downturn, actually companies try not to market or kind of cut marketing budgets, but there has been extensive research to show that businesses actually benefit from more marketing during times of economic downturn. Right? There's a whole lot of theory underneath that. That's an academic conversation that we can have on another day, maybe when I'm at some coffee shop up in the D. But the reality is this: if you, during times of economic downturn and during times of turbulence, do not, as best as you can, take your foot off the gas with your marketing. Okay. Here's one reason why. During the pandemic, I think the number was somewhere close to 78%. 78% of customers said they tried something for the very first time during the pandemic. How many of you can say you did that? I admit that during the pandemic, I was never really one into buying online, picking up at store, having people putting stuff in my trunk. But I tried it during the pandemic, and I ain't been back. Okay? I returned back. Let me make sure I say that the correct way. I'm a professor at a university. I have not gone back to the old traditional way of things after trying that for the very first time. If they had stopped marketing that service during the turbulent times of the pandemic, I would have never tried it, most likely, and I would not have been, maybe a convert. So typically during times of economic downturn, what we actually find is that people are more open to trying new things, to trying new services, and to maybe expanding a little bit as they figure out how to make life happen in those turbulent times. So actually, as best as you can, try not to take your foot off of the gas when it comes to marketing. If you don't have some kind of measure of performance that looks reflectively, you need to do it. Okay, and I'll give you this, and I know that I'll have to kind of close probably with this. Again, we often are so excited about sales and revenue, and that's great. But if you think about it, sales and revenue is a reflection of what has happened, right? I sold my product to Juan. I sold my product to Yvette. I sold my product to Mary. Very retro looking. But what we do know is that if I know that Yvette and Mary and Juan were satisfied, then I know that they will likely come back. And they will likely share possible amount because of that experience. So the question is, do you know whether or not your customers are satisfied? Right. Not that they bought from you, because you know that. You got the data and the sales and the money in your pocket to show you that. But do you know whether or not those customers are satisfied? And if you don't, then you need to infuse some mechanism to assess whether or not your customers are satisfied. Okay. Now here's a real easy one. And it looks more difficult than what it is. Many of you probably bought an airline ticket, and then on the phone they ask you, would you be willing to answer a 1-question survey at the conclusion of this call? Have you any of you experienced that?
Yes.
This 1-question survey. That 1-question survey is what we call the Net Promoter Score survey. It is a 1-question survey, and it typically is some function of this question: how likely is it that you would recommend or to a friend or to a colleague? There's all kind of research on it. Trust me, as a marketing professor, this 1 question is a silver bullet, because in this 1 question, you can actually get a good measure of how healthy you are serving your customers. Now, there is some analysis that you have to do. You have to get the percentage. So if you survey 10 customers, and 2 of them are high up on that promoters, they're the ones who say, yeah, they'll promote. And 5 of them are your detractors, or they're low on this scale of 1 to 10.
So if they give you a 9
then
or 10,
you need to
right.
say, hey, 20% of my 10 customers are promoters, 50% are detractors. So therefore, I'm kind of tracking -30 in terms of my Net Promoter Score. Okay. Now that might sound bad, but what I'll tell you is that, that is bad. But I wanted to say that Net Promoter Scores are not generally very, very extremely high. Okay, so there are some industries where you see Net Promoter Scores like retail, 57, on average 31. So this is a good sign, because it gives you not only some Net Promoter Scores to benchmark in your different industries, but also maybe what some of the lows and highs are in your respective market. I know that gets me to 4:15. I had a couple of other things that I wanted to share, just some marketing messages that work. And I'll just hit those real quick, Marion, if I can get maybe just 2 quick minutes. Sorry, I'm gonna jump through these slides. Personalization is really important. The better you can personalize your offerings to your customers, the better. In 2021, 2022, personalization is the way to go. According to the NRF, the way people shop today, they are what we call citizen shoppers. They are, quote, voting with their wallet. So if your company stands for something, make sure your customers know about it. If you have a cause that you're behind, if you stand on a certain platform, or you have a certain cause that's underneath your company, stand on that, because it will resonate today in today's environment, because customers are very politically motivated in the way that they shop. Now, you got to make sure you can back it up, as it says on the bottom of this. So don't, I was going to get real casual, say, don't be out there preaching that you do something and you don't do it. But you do want to make sure that if you have a cause, that you market it. Processes. In today's environment, what we learned through COVID is that processes really matter. I'm not the biggest Chick-fil-A fan, and they have some things going on with them that I don't necessarily agree with as a company. But one thing I can say, their processes are down. I have driven past Chick-fil-A's and the line be all down the street. That's what I'm talking about. They get you in and out there quicker than the McDonald's would, that just had 2 or 3 cars in the line. Their processes are so good. Today's customer really wants to know more about not only your product, but they want to know your process. Okay, and so you want to make sure that you're marketing your processes as best you can. Maybe the last one I'll share with you is market connectedness. and market transparency. These were some other ICCC companies, but notice here in their marketing message, they say, hey, stay safe during these challenging times. We're all in this together. These kind of statements really resonate. And what we're finding as we come out of 21 and into 22, today's customer really, is still feeling this sense of community, still wants this sense of connectedness and togetherness. And so, connectedness is really powerful. And then transparency, even like back to the company I talked about where the lady talked about her story and talked about having high blood pressure. That kind of transparency really resonates
like you told
in today's marketplace.
Put up there
because
about that
people are
addiction.
still dealing with some challenging times. Many of us are still grappling with the loss of loved ones that we didn't really even get a chance to effectively funeralize. And so there's just still a high level of emotion in the marketplace. And as a marketer, you want to try to connect with that as best you can. That's my time. I'm 3 minutes over. This QR code has all my information. Feel free to scan it. It'll populate all my details. Hey, thank you guys so much for welcoming a homeboy back, even though he lives in Ohio and works at the Ohio State University. That's the Ohio State University.
Oh, yeah, they got that on mark.
I know I gave you guys a lot, and I've talked for the second half of this without much opportunity for sharing. I wanted to try to share as much as I could, so I do apologize for having to go at light speed. You'll have these slides, you'll have everything in there for you at your disposal. Hopefully these tactics and tools will help you to more effectively market your businesses as we just continue to navigate through these turbulent times. Thank you guys so much. I do appreciate it. Very sorry for the 2 or 3 minutes I took.
Can we come down Ohio State?
Thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
No worries. And thank you so much, Dr. Esper, for, again, such another dynamic and engaging conversation. It was great to see a lot of feedback coming up in the chat box and kind of sharing how folks were able to kind of resonate with that. As Terry shared, we will be sharing the slides from today with you all, as well as several exercises that Terry has created to help you develop those target customer exercises for both B2B and B2C businesses.
Go blue.
So more to come of that tomorrow. So with that, I want to congratulate you all for taking the time this afternoon to really focus and take the time to work on your business versus working in it. The next component for the afternoon will now be a chance for you to actually get to know one another a little bit more. So with that, Cheryl, if you don't yes, if you can just go to slides. So the next portion of the afternoon will be, as I shared, a networking opportunity to connect with one another. Cheryl, if you don't mind, just, that's slide 3, I think.
I'm sorry. I'm just having a little bit of technical difficulty. Give me 1 second.
No worries. But essentially the way that the networking will function and run is that you'll go into breakout rooms once again. We'll do 2 rounds of breakouts where you'll be able to connect with as many folks in the room as possible. They'll be randomized, so you'll get a chance to connect with as many folks as possible as well. For the first round of breakouts, the prompt for you will be to share a little bit, to share the 2 or 3 takeaways that you gained from today. So what are 2 to 3 insights that either Dr. Sims or Dr. Esper shared that you want to be able to walk away with and take away? And then we'll come back, we'll regroup, and then you'll do a second round of networking with another prompt. And so with that, I'll send you all to your rooms and happy networking. See you all soon.
Oh, did you not?
Yeah, I sent it to him.
Okay, this is his contact info.
Okay, good. Take that down. He gave a direct number for us.
865 789 5472. He's E. Esper. Dot
865 789
dot E.
4.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Hey.
How you guys doing?
Great.
Awesome. So this is the getting to know you section. Is there a moderator in here? Is there someone in here, or we just kind of open it up ourselves?
We're opening it up ourselves.
Oh, okay. Well, I just say that all that was so helpful. It was so specific, and I love the use of business language to describe things we may think about, but to be actually intentional and targeted on doing certain things. And yeah, that's what I loved about both of them. Business, it really, it gets your mind thinking, how can you strategize and plan to be successful? And it really just, it was very educational. I mean, I worked in business for 5 years in banking and management and retail, but that was 30 years ago. And that's why I wanted to do this. I have a PhD. My wife has a PharmD and she's a lawyer, but we didn't go to business school. And so when you get out here, you got your skill set, but you might not have the business savvy to be sustainable. And that's what this really brings to the table. And how these major companies have these marketing gurus and finance, marketing, and business strategy gurus, and we got to do it all ourselves. So this is very helpful. So that's what I really picked up from both of them. Just kind of like, this is how they're thinking. This is how Coca-Cola became Coca-Cola. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so that was it for me. Miranda, you know.
Oh, I concur that all through graduate school training, really didn't get any business, very little exposure to business and how to do that. I have worked in the industry, in particular in pharmacy, for a variety of different settings, from teaching pharmacy, pharmaceutical companies, to retail pharmacies, and particularly the retailers, and they have that marketing strategy on lock. And so there's a lot to glean from it, but doing it for yourself is like, you don't want to reinvent the wheel, you want to build on the knowledge base in business. But I can really appreciate this.
Yeah, last but not least, Jennifer Lewis, I just saw a video of her selling her book earlier today, a little meme. Anybody who saw that, it was so good. But I mean, she had almost, I'd say maybe 500 to 700 people holding her book up in a congregation. And she was doing, what Jennifer Lewis does. She's singing, laughing, kicking her leg up, buy my book. It's going to be great, But I mean, everybody, all of us don't have the ability to have a church full of people with our product holding up and on national TV. All of us don't have that platform. So I appreciate this.
But I do have a book available on Amazon.
That's what I told her she needed to do. I said, you need to do that.
Right.
But then let's turn it over to them. Thank you so much. And we'll mute and listen.
So I got a lot from it. I learned, I love marketing, but I definitely learned some new things about marketing. I liked when they talked about really being really specific to picking your customer. That I thought was great for me. And so can we go around and introduce ourselves too, just so we get to know each other? So my name is Sheila Randolph, and I help nonprofits. I have a company called Fundraiser Travel, and I help nonprofits raise money to travel.
Oh, okay.
Experiences. Thanks.
I'll go next. My name is Yvette Steins, and I run Steins Communications Group, and it's a holistic communications firm that helps you bring your story to life so you can share it with the world. So it's an alignment with public relations and writing and marketing. I'm somewhat taking a hiatus, so I'm glad I took this program to put it back on track in a way. It was a little bit of post-COVID burnout. I wrote a lot about health during the process. The blessing in that is I got a book deal. I have a role as a communications manager, but what I would like to do is to kind of put things in place so it's aligned, kind of like what the last presenter said, the process is like a well-oiled machine. It's working in media and public relations, a lot of moving parts, so I want it to move without the burnout of it. Working in the industry for 20-something years. As you know, journalism has had its ebbs and flows, and a lot of things are like native marketing or advertorials, if you would. So just really looking at the processes and the purpose and alignment with that dynamic. And I think a couple takeaways was a lot from the marketing. It just kind of reminded me of things that need to be put in place in the mission, vision, and values. And like the doctors said before, you can align that with your life as well. And I think that's so important to the level of order and aligning your values with your business, but also kind of putting some of those things in place in life as you grow and scale in different ways.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I'll go next. I'm Audra Carson. I own Izzy LLC, named in honor of my mother. I call myself Chief Beautification Strategist, and I provide cleanliness maintenance, ground maintenance for public spaces, public shared spaces. Yeah,
get your chase cut out of my wall. I put over there.
A couple of takeaways. Being a social entrepreneur, the marketing really had me think about who is my target versus who is that, that secondary customer. My services are geared toward businesses. And so really thinking about growth versus scaling. That distinction was very powerful for me because I'm thinking growth and scale, pretty much are the same thing. So that clarification has really helped me. And I'm leaving today with some actionable steps as a social entrepreneur to be able to grow and think about talent, bringing on talent and what that looks like. So I'm over the moon, excited and inspired and encouraged, and seeing some people that I know on this call is inspiring as well. So good stuff.
Cool. Excuse me. They switched me from one breakout room to this one, so I missed a little bit of things. But I'm Yvette Jenkins, and my business is Love Travels Imports, and we curate and produce ethically handmade accessories, home decor, and gift items. And I think this is a really good way to reset. I've been in sales in one form of fashion for 30 years. And to take a pause, in terms of my business, because in the beginning, I had a way of identifying who my target customer was, etc. But over time, I think I've learned a few more things that can be applicable. And, like I said earlier in the open session about the specificity, being able to really get a little more granular with, the content and how I put things together. And I find that it's a good thing to, at least on an annual basis, to do some of this stuff. But just with the way of working in the business, I haven't had the chance to take that time out so that I could be perhaps a little more objective and focused on that, because I've just been so, focused on doing the work. And so this is a great reminder of the importance of stepping back and really, putting this stuff down, being very specific so that you can have specific goals and actionable items to move forward. So, it's been good for me from that perspective.
Get up there. Okay. Say hello, cousin.
Hello, cousin Yvette.
Yes.
This is your cousin Randy.
I saw your face. I was like, oh yeah. I just saw her.
Right. Good to see you.
My mom just passed September 14th, and the service was September 21st.
So it was great, to see family who I hadn't seen in a while.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's it's still fresh. It's still sorry.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's really tough.
I think we have one. We have one more person.
One more.
China.
Two more people. Is
that somebody down there? That's not. We can't see your face. Do you want to speak, or are you near the phone?
I am here. I'm working. I'm sorry. Hi. Hold on. Let me get on camera so y'all can see me.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shayna. I own a small fitness studio here in Detroit called JC Pop Performance. A little bit about what I do here. Well, we do a lot of different things. So we work with, of course, adults, all fitness levels. We do senior classes. And we also have a component which we developed within the pandemic. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, yeah. We have a component that we created within the pandemic in a way for us to pivot where we work with youth because there's not a lot of Detroit businesses that work with the youth. So we do athletic training because on top of that, I am a middle school, high school track coach. So we tapped into that market a little bit that actually kind of saved us in the midst of the pandemic, as well as we offer some online programs for classes, personal training, and all that.
Sheila, yeah. Okay. All right. So what did you learn from today? Did you get a chance in between working people out to check?
Yeah. Of course. Well, yeah. A whole lot. I think our biggest downfall, and for me, and I've been in business for myself now maybe 3 years. I'm not that good on marketing. So marketing strategy and just having that, and then just like the focal, I know who my target audience is because there's so many different components. I think the last speaker was giving some really good information on like who's your profitable client. I have those people who've been with me a long time, so it's just trying to find out how I adapt and create new profitable clients.
Amen.
But on top of that, just trying to stay in afloat during this pandemic and learning different ways to pivot. It's just been a little challenging, but to say the least, we're still here. We're still moving. But yeah.
Amen. Well, that was the most, I'm glad you brought that up. That was the most interesting thing to me, the profitable client versus the target client that's not profitable, that will drive you nuts. It's the one who gives the least financially that takes 90% of your time. And when I set up the practice, I was a professor when I was thinking about doing a practice. And there was one guy who said, get enough people who can afford to pay you where you can serve some people who can't afford to pay you. So I wanted money not to be an issue where Black people couldn't get, or I was focused on Black people, but where, poor people couldn't get counseling because they didn't have the money. And that was before Obamacare and all of that, where a lot more people have insurance where they can, through Medicaid, to get mental health services. But anyway, I found that even with that, what he brought up today is so important because people don't realize how valuable your time is. And a lot of our people, we're in counseling too. So I get paid to talk and listen and solve. So people just want to talk. Like I'm their pastor who also, like if they're tithers, then he'll talk. If they're not tithers, pastor don't have that much time for you, you'd be honest. But the point is, I have to educate people about, okay, there's a 45-minute session. All right. And then I'll see you in 2 weeks. Now, if you have a higher need than I can provide, maybe you need another setting, but I can't talk to you every other day and I just had an idea and I want to call you. So a lot of mine is education and then valuing my target client. But I realized, I can't stay alive often with my target client unless I'm a social service agency that has federal funding. If I'm grant funded, I can do that. But if not, I have to have enough people who can pay so I can keep the lights on, keep the doors open, that kind of thing. So that was powerful for me today, to keep that balance and really be able to assess that balance. So now I take a certain amount of Medicaid clients, and I have a certain amount of clients who can't pay anything, but I need the larger percentage to be people who can pay and have insurance that will pay. So anyway.
Yeah, especially in retail, there's a tendency, if you do pop-ups or you do vending and that type of thing, determining whether or not it makes sense, excuse me, for you to participate in something, a lot of times, so that it's a win-win, because sometimes an organization, they just look out for the money they want to make, and they don't necessarily think that that people that are vending, they need to make money too.
Right.
Everybody needs to make some money in that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a small world. What I was going to tell you, her mother died the same day my father died. And I just discovered
many years apart.
Hello, all.
Okay.
Welcome back to the main room. I hope you all enjoyed being able to connect and network with some of your fellow business owners and sharing some of the insights that you gained from today's session. So as I shared, we are going to bring you back into some new rooms again, where you can hopefully connect and network with some other business owners. And for this second breakout, the goal that what we ideally would like you to kind of share and discuss is to share a little bit of what you're hoping to take advantage of in this program. So I know a lot of you have various growth goals that you're looking to work towards. And so I encourage you in your groups to discuss what you're hoping to get out of the program. So whether that's insights on thinking through your marketing strategy, how to continue to be a better leader for your team, or just really getting a stronger hold on your finances. And so with that, I'll send everyone to your rooms again. You'll have about 15 or so minutes.
Right
And
now
those
I have
will
Friday
come
as
back
an
and close out the
administrative day,
session.
but really it's more of a day off because I'm burnt out by the time I get there. So, they put us back in the rooms with other people. Okay. Hey.
Hey there, our fabric lady.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
All right. They cut us off, Deborah. Last time. Well, who wants to start? Let's do a round. Who wants to start? What do you plan to take home? What's your take home? Who wants to start?
I guess I'll start.
Okay.
Okay, so I own a jewelry boutique and gift gallery, and I represent my own line of jewelry. I've been a designer for 26 years, and then I represent about 6 or 7 other women designers and small businesses, clothing, candles, natural body products, hand-blown glass, leather work, canvas art, like watercolors and acrylic. And so my takeaway is I've always known what my target audience is. My target audience is someone who's like me. Middle class, about my age, 50, 55, like something a little different, jewelry and designs to express who they are. And I know that my customers want that real artisan experience. And they want to feel my love in the piece. Okay. So they're very much like me. It just took me all this time to figure out that my best strategy
is probably Facebook, because that's where I'm going to find them, because that's where most of the people my age go. I've been listening to my younger artists that I have emerging artists here. And they're like, oh, you got to get on TikTok. You got to do this, you got to do that. No one my age is going to do that. I mean, no one my age is really going to TikTok for that. So I'm going to have to be Facebook professional at this point and really get comfortable with being on there and doing Facebook Lives. And not just telling about my jewelry, but telling my story, connecting with them, building a whole community, building a whole audience, because I'm reaching out to people who are just like me. I'm reaching out to women who are just like me. So yeah, that's my takeaway. That, you know, I need to, I really got to figure out where I need to reach. And so that's where I need to reach.
As soon as I pointed at him, he disappeared. All right.
That's great. Oh, did you?
Who's next? Who's next?
I don't think she can hear it. Are you muted?
Who's next? Who'd like to go next? Deborah, you want to go next? Oh, okay. What about David? David Delaney.
I'm sorry. I was on mute.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. So let's see here. I think I've taken a lot of notes today. And what I plan to do is to go back and just kind of take a look at my business plan, and then some forecasts that I've made, and overlay the information to see basically how am I doing. So kind of like a self-assessment. And but the one that stuck out the most for me is the actually doing the research and looking at those research documents as the social media relates to my target market. And then from there, developing my marketing strategy, social media wise. So far, I've just been haphazardly focused on that. And now I want it to be more intentional. And so I think looking at that, those research data companies and seeing, you know, that was all valuable information for me. Because I noticed trend-wise, Wednesdays were good for me in regards to Instagram, because I noticed I got the most clicks on those days. But I want to see how this new Tuesday and these other time frames kind of relate back to what I had been noticing. So that is the big takeaway for me.
Yeah, you know, what they did, companies have been doing market research, large companies, for years. And certainly Mark Zuckerberg made his money by being able to identify people's spending needs and desires and all those questions he asked.
And showcasing.
Asking you what kind of TV shows you watch and what you like. And then they sell that to big companies. And we don't have access to those lists. But this research gives us a peek in where we can use it, you know, beyond the own clients that we have. People used to tease me, Vashawn, is it Vashawn? Yeah, people used to tease me, Vashawn, about being on Facebook so much. Oh, you wasting your time on Facebook. Why don't you go, do you work anywhere? You know, they used to tell me that. And that's actually what drives my business. And what, yeah, that's it. And so those Facebook Lives and preaching on there and having groups and interacting with people and going back and forth, that's what built my business. And I get a lot of, you know, that's where my bounce comes from now. Now people have become more educated about the value of social media and research. But like you said there, Deborah, too, that specific data, I haven't seen that before, about the actual times a day, you know, when people are on there and which particular platforms they're on at times a day and how old they are and who they are. Now that makes it a science.
Right.
That takes it to a different level. So you're not wasting your time when none of your people are on there or on that particular social platform. So,
and also depending on what your products and the product line, like you have a wide variety, but then you could get other sub-target customers out of that as well. So that's powerful.
Yeah.
So,
But brother David or Taylor, are y'all on, or are we just looking in the black hole on you here today? Oh, there's Taylor. Okay, we'll shut up.
So my name is Taylor. I'm actually in Dallas. I'm not in Detroit. I'm in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
And I own a health and wellness spa. Today, what I took away from everything that I learned is that I'm kind of on the right track. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the things that they spoke on are things that I've already hit on within my business plan, my marketing, social media, Google, working with companies, working with the actual consumer. It kind of let me know that I need to better solidify and, make my processes a little better. I guess you could say more intact or more automatic instead of manual. But the main thing that has really social media. So social media is very important in today's world, and me making reels or, like he said, Facebook Lives and those type of things, it's helped me learn my audience, as well as it's helped me sway other individuals to know the importance of preserving the best version of them. The importance of taking care of themselves, because we are creatures of habits, and sometimes we are more prone to take care of others before we actually pour into ourselves. And so with me owning a spa, that's kind of the thing that I focus on, like preserving the best version of you. So today I took away, that everything that they spoke on, I've already touched on it. So I'm walking down the right path. I'm not,
wasting time,
going astray.
Amen. Amen. Awesome. Yep, Taylor, I tell them they call me Dr. Sunshine because I'm an expert on fun time.
And self-care is real key. So I can appreciate that you're doing.
Yeah. They're opening up a window much larger. Like we said, we may have tapped on it, but they're opening up a much larger window to be effective using it as a professional. They're professionalizing. And so, all right. Well, one day came Inc. David, are you there? David Delaney? He may be indisposed. Okay. So I think we've gotten to know each other. I know they're going to be giving us that 30-second thing in a moment. I also like the language that the first professor of business gave us in terms of that triangle. She had the who, what, the value, and the how. So staying true to who you are as a business. She had your value proposition, how is revenue created, and what do you offer the customer? She was big on that value, on that, not only the revenue model, but who are you? What's your value proposition? What was that term she used? Your core competency. So in other words, and she talked about that chain that makes you different than anybody else that does what you do. I love that. That's a purpose piece. So what were you called to do that you uniquely bring? Don't lose that. Going after the money, just chasing money, going over here and over there. Stay true to what you're called to do. And I always say, in Christianity, of course, and just in spirituality in general, if you get on your pathway, that what God has called you and purposed you to do, and you're doing it, nothing can stop you. And it will bring the people to you. People will be the pathway to your doorway when you are standing in your true purpose of what you came here to do. At the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is self-actualization. When you self-actualize. And a lot of times, like we talked with Deborah earlier, these callings find us. There's a burning bush for us. And it says, I'm telling you to do this in your heart of hearts. And you do it. And when you do that, and you're genuine, people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. When you're walking in your purpose, there's something to that. And I say Once you do that, all the physical human resources will come to you when you align yourself that way. And you're genuine and have integrity. So
your gift will make room for you.
Your gift will make room for you. Come on, somebody. Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready for your blessing.
That's your Bernie Mac.
That's TD Jakes.
Right.
TD Jakes. Get ready, get ready. It's coming. It's coming. You got to stand up. I don't care what they say about you. Keep getting up. Am I right about it? Am I making any sense? All right, that's all. Stick a fork in me. I'm done. I'm done. Okay. Okay. All right.
Do you guys have a location in Michigan?
Yes, we're in Detroit. We're at 19415 West McNichols, right in Northwest Detroit. And our first office was in Ann Arbor. We met at Michigan 41 years ago at University of Michigan. When we came back from Texas, we opened up in Ann Arbor, and we had 2 different offices in Ann Arbor. We outgrew the first one, and then we raised our kids, and our kids were in high school. And we moved down to West Bloomfield to put them in a public school, and we moved our office to West Bloomfield, and then we opened up an office in Detroit. The first Detroit office was in 2016, and the second one was in 2020. And during the pandemic, I kept that West Bloomfield office open for a year. It's paying $800 a month for that place. And during the pandemic, I was still under contract, and I had to keep it for a year. But he let me out at the end of the year. And it's just down to one. Now we're down to one office here in Detroit. And this is where I always wanted, this is who I really wanted to serve my people here. So that's us.
Yeah. Well, seems like you said you was thinking about franchising your model.
Right.
That's what we're in the process of doing. So I'm looking to bring it home.
Oh, amen. Amen. That's the key. I'm licensed, and they're opening up. I'm licensed in Georgia and here, and I actually have I have clients in Georgia right now. But I have someone who wants to open up an office who was on my board in Chicago. And so he's a pastor, and he's an entrepreneur, and he wants to open up a hotel office offering that counseling in Chicago. So this vehicle for me, this class that we're in, helps me, because I was always a little leery about franchising. And, business can get very sticky when you get other people involved, and you got to have a tight contract with people. You mess around and you no longer, the board will kick out the director in a minute, and you mess around. You
better write that in the bylaws.
Right. So, but this vehicle here gives me it gives me some business experts and a coach as I create that. Because my goal, by the time we finish this, I want to have a contract that allows me to feel comfortable opening up these other offices and duplicate. Because we're in our 60s. I'll be 62 in a couple months. I want to leave behind this model for somebody else to use in the Black community. Took me 30 years to come up with it, but there's some other people who can do it. I want to create an institution that's bigger than what I know. It's not institutions versus charismatic, where other people can do it in the next generation, or it might not be my kids, but somebody can do it. And women live longer than men. She can do it after I leave here. And so, she's waiting. She's like, I know he's gonna be gone. I'm just gonna be gone. I'm just joking.
He's a comedian, and I'm a comedy writer. So I'm working on a sitcom. Right. Because I love to write.
Right, but we want to leave something. Legacy. We talk about legacy all the time, but we want to do legacy. And
that's really crucial, that as Black people, especially, that we create that opportunity for our, hopefully we have some children on board, or some friends of the children on board, or people in our community that do want to help further that vision and continue that work.
We were at a ACA, American Counseling Association convention in 2013. And we met a couple that were writing books, and now we're writing books. It was a white couple called Ivy and Ivy, and they just publishing the books we were teaching from in the classroom. And so we said, we should do like them. So we decided, we started. Now we have out a couple books. Now, the next I'm at that same conference. I met a white guy who said he had 3 counseling offices, AJ Centaur in Philadelphia area. He had a goal of having 100. He now has 300 offices, 300 counseling offices. They're called ThriveWorks around the country. I actually opened one of his offices for him when he opened one up here, and worked for him for about 6 months. But when I opened up his office, he had in his contract that if you work for him, you can't have your own private practice. And I was like, you're the big purple people eater. This white boy about to take my office and have me working for him. I was like, no. So I left. But I've learned a lot while I was there. I was like, I could do this. We could do this. Right. We need to have, you know, our own brand that is culturally sensitive and has, you know, so that's my goal. And so, but you know, we can do a lot more if we communicate, trust each other, and work together. And this is one of those kind of dynamics. Yeah. So I'll shut up now. Y'all go ahead. I think they've giving us the rest of this time. Y'all go ahead. Open up your mic. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's interesting that you talk about franchises. I was thinking about doing an affiliate program for some of my designs, but that meant that I would have to be willing to create, to mass produce a design, which I don't do.
Okay.
My works are one of a kind.
Okay.
And so the only thing that I mass produce right now are some bracelets that I actually have on Amazon.
Oh, wow.
And it's not going as well as I would like. So I'm thinking about just pulling it. And if it's an affiliate program, it stays under me. With Amazon, you know, you got to follow their guidelines. And if you don't print out this in enough time, they cancel your order and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you're just, you know, held to them when I can do it myself. So going forward in 2023, an affiliate program might not be a bad idea.
This is we have about 30 seconds left. This is a great incubator to find out.
Yeah.
What we're in right now. We have the experts on board. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I just have to think about the right product. I mean, what I have on Amazon, I think will work. I just got to have a team.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Have a team.
Amen. Well, you got a team now. You got the ICCC team. So.
There you go.
All right. So God bless y'all. We'll see you Wednesday. All right now. Peace.
Take care.
Okay, so they're cutting it off now.
Are they?
Yeah, they said 1 minute. We're past 5 o'clock.
Oh. Okay.
So we'll go. Oh, that's her? Okay.
Yeah, she's got to tell us about what day 2 gonna be.
Oh, okay.
Well, welcome back all, and again, congratulations on completing day 1 of the ICCC Detroit Virtual Seminar Series. I know it was a long day with a lot of information and a lot of pieces, and I can imagine heads are hurting a bit now, but I want to thank you all again for taking the time today to really think a little bit more strategically about your business and being able to think and connect with fellow business owners. As a reminder, you'll receive all of the slides from today in an email tomorrow, as well as just instructions for how to get onto Wednesday's session. It'll be the same process and the same link as the way you got in today, but we'll just send you those reminders tomorrow. With that in mind, remember, this is just day 1. The seminar will continue on Wednesday from about 1 to 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, you'll receive presentations on strategy, on talent management and finance, as well as sit in on our resource panel where we'll bring together different types of local resource providers to hear from. So with that, I hope you all have a great rest of your Monday and a great afternoon. Thank you again for taking the time to join us. And we'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your evening.
All right. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Everybody.
All right. Appreciate you, Jared Jones.
Thank you.
Brother.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Ronald, I hope you got my information.
Yep, I got your information, Jim.
All right,
and Jared, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you so much, brother.
Absolutely, no problem, Dr. Hill.
All right. And you see, I have my better half here. I convinced her to come on and back in with Hotel.
Yeah. All right.
This was great. It was awesome. Awesome.
Thank
Great
you.
information.
Learned a lot.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
All righty.
All right.
Mm.
All right. He's a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
And broadcast.